Welcome back. While the artists are changing and more people are getting tattoos, how does the general public view the industry? Some believe there is still work to be done to change people's perceptions of tattooing, making it more accepted as a diverse art form. How to shift those often negative associations of the industry was the idea behind a current exhibition, which takes tattoo art off the skin and onto something more familiar, canvas. We continue our story. Changing perceptions about the tattoo industry was the inspiration for SkinInk's, the first exhibition of its kind in the region. Its curators hope the display will help to challenge the often negative perceptions of the industry and expose the art form to a wider audience. What do you think people's impression of tattooing in Hong Kong is generally?
Changing, I think. It's changing. I mean, obviously, you don't have to go back very far, and it was... If you were tattooed, you were either... Well, if you were a local and you were tattooed, you were probably almost certainly a gangster, triad. If you were a foreigner and you were tattooed, you were probably a sailor. You know, I mean, that's only maybe 20 years ago even. That was just how everybody perceived it. Now it's very, very different, I think.
Each of the 14 participating tattoo artists were given a large canvas. On it, a photo print of a semi-nude customer. This was the skin on which they could freely express their art, using any ink they chose. Artists were given just over a month to complete their canvases.
And by taking things out of context a little bit, you tend to widen its appeal, make it more accessible. So by putting it onto the canvas, hopefully we're actually letting people see that, you know, and see the fact that, right, you know, it's art suddenly.
Do you think that tattoo artists themselves, they encourage that change as well? They want other people to be exposed to their art form?
I think so, because I mean, tattoo artists are changing too. I mean, even in this exhibition, we've got everything from, you know, the very, very old school, you know, originals, and then we've got some of the very, very youngest, you know, who are a third, even less, the age of these guys, you know, who obviously are approaching it from a very, very different perspective. They don't want everybody to think that it's just for gangsters or sailors, that they operate out of these dirty, unhygienic little shops. It's all kind of underground. Sometimes you just have to make things a bit more accessible in order to change people's perceptions a little bit, and that's what we're trying to do, I suppose. Between us and Red Dog Studio, we just emailed a bunch of people and outlined the project and said basically what we need you to do is come in and take most of your clothes off and be photographed, and we're going to give it to a tattoo artist. We've got things like this, all done with airbrush. So this one is all done with original. This is quite interesting. I mean, basically she took all of the original stencils that she'd already used on previous clients and then reapplied them.
Being able to see the work of over a dozen artists in one place is an efficient way to display the vast differences in artists' styles, and having the designs on canvas means it feels and looks more familiar and maybe less intimidating.
The old school style is, I guess, what most people would think of when they think of tattoos, and they think of sailors, and they think of anchors and hearts and roses and dragons and stuff like that, you know. So there's a lot of people that are still doing those things, but it's just kind of evolved a little bit.
The idea that your skin becomes the canvas for someone else's art is where tattooing seems to be heading. It's no longer just about picking up a pre-made design or symbol, but choosing an artist whose aesthetic you like. Your skin becomes their creative playground. And advances in technology means artists can create more detailed designs and further develop their own style.
It's kind of important to realize that the techniques and the equipment has changed massively as well. So what the artists are capable of doing now is a lot more than it used to be. You know, when there used to be one needle, and it was a lot less sophisticated in terms of the equipment.
Dragons, phoenixes, oriental swirls, taking the tattoos out of context is one way to bring the art form into new light. But could it be that these images are not from Hong Kong's underground subculture, but rather much more representative of the mainstream of this international city and the people in it? This is kind of what Hong Kong is.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, Hong Kong's a very urban place. You know, people are living on top of each other. It's an extremely social place, you know, which has good and bad things, you know, associated with it. And yeah, I mean, urban is really what sums it up, I think, you know, for us, and that's what I'm interested in. We're in the heart of the city here in the studio, and I find it constantly inspiring being surrounded by, you know, that amount of life. You know, I mean, every day past the window, a guy, you know, in Wellingtons and shorts and tattoos runs past carrying a dead pig, you know, to the butcher up the road.
And the exhibition is not just for show. Next week, all canvases will be up for auction.
In this case, we're giving all the proceeds to the Kelly Support Group, which is a youth outreach group, which sort of helps all of the young, wayward, you know, dysfunctional or just lonely, or just, you know, just young people that just haven't quite, you know, aren't quite on top of things, basically.